recording this. Oh. So for those of you who just are joining me now in this recording, I actually have been talking for 5 minutes and I forgot to start the recording. So welcome. The topic today is 4 steps to developing and maintaining good habits for a lifetime. And I was saying that the reason that I chose today to do this is because this really is the danger zone for people who have decided that they want to do something important in their lives and change an aspect of their lives that really will make a big difference for them, and they want to tackle it and get hold of it permanently. This is the crucial time. The 3 to 6 week mark is really important that you get over this hump in order to establish a habit that's going to last a lifetime. About 3 weeks in is when people get very tired of doing the new thing that they've started to do. There's no energy behind it. There's very little momentum, very little motivation because it's not fun anymore. You're back in the kind of humdrum, mundane aspects of your life and your routine that has restarted and now kind of gotten itself going for the past 3 weeks. And so that's why the 3 to 6 week mark, any behavioral change at any time of year, not just this time of year, but it's why it's the most crucial time. So I thought I would go through these 4 steps that if you do these 4 actions, you will make sure that the habits that you develop, they stick with you and for a lifetime. Now, there are some cautions. Change is really hard. So I'm going to give you 4 steps. The steps aren't technically hard, but it does take time to think through the answers to some of the questions that I'm going to be asking you around each of these steps. So they take some time to really just nail down and make sure that you have it right. So I want to make sure though that you do establish habits that are going to last a lifetime. So it makes sense that the steps that you need to take in order to make that happen aren't necessarily just going to be something that you can do in 5 minutes. You're going to need to think about some of these things. It's not rocket science, any of the stuff that I'm going to be presenting you, but you do need to take the time to really ask yourself these questions, answer these questions for yourself, and then move forward, okay? So one of the things that you need to know is that if you have a bad habit that you're trying to replace with a good habit, we actually don't ever break bad habits. Once you've learned how to do something, that learning is there with you for life, unless you have a brain injury or something. Okay, so once you've learned to do a certain thing, you've established a certain pattern, a certain habitual way of doing something, that's going to be with you for life because that's just how learning is. I mean, imagine if you had to reteach yourself how to tie your shoes every couple years because you broke that habit of tying your shoe. The brain doesn't work that way. Once you learn something, it's there. What this means is that if you have a particular habit that you're trying to change, you have to make sure that you're aware of the fact that you're not going to put that old habit away. It's not going to be hidden somewhere. You need to override that old habit with these new behaviors, okay? And I say that because it's easy to get very down on yourself when you try to start new things, and after 3 to 6 weeks, it's so much easier to go back to the old way that you've always done things. It will always be easier for you to return to your default habits, even if you don't like those habits, and even if you've worked really hard to conquer them. There's still that learning, those habits, those neural connections in your brain are still always going to be there. So it just means that you have to put forth a little bit more effort to make sure that you develop and keep the habits that you want, okay, so that you kind of de-emphasize the ones that you don't want anymore. Now, the good news is you can do that. Okay, you can do that. So none of this is outside of the realm of possibility of what you're capable of. So you can absolutely do this. I just don't want you to think it's going to be easy or it's going to be effortless. That's not true. Change is hard. It takes effort. And if you want the change to last and not just, take hold for 3 weeks and you just kind of discard it and move on, then you just put forth a little bit of effort. But I'm going to tell you everything you need to know today in these 4 steps, and you'll be able to do that. All right. Now, first of all, the first important thing just about human nature, human behavior that you need to know about yourself and about other people too, is that people really do only what they want to do, okay? So if you're starting a new exercise program, or if you're trying to be organized, maybe you're not the most organized person in the world and you've decided for the new year you want to get your organization under control, maybe your paperwork or household clutter, whatever it is. Maybe you want to start a new eating program, whatever. people just still do what they want to do. If you want to go get a Big Mac, you know what? You're going to get a Big Mac. That you're going to do what you want to do. So one of the keys to really developing a habit that sticks with you for a lifetime is to make sure that you choose something to change that you really want to change. I mean, it's important to you to change. You want to change it. Not that you feel like you have to, not because someone else is telling you you should, not because you feel some sort of social pressure. Oh, it's time to quit smoking. It's time to lose weight. It's time to really get moving with my business. You feel like you have to do it, and so you're going to just try to force yourself to do it. That just doesn't work in the long run. It works in the short run. It does, but not in the long run. Because you know why? You're only going to do what you really want to do. So make sure that when you think about changing permanently, make it something that you want, not that somebody wants for you, but that you want, that it's important to you. Okay. Now, let's start. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you the first step. I have developed a little handout, like just a worksheet basically thing to help you take notes. But because of some technical difficulties, it's not yet up on the website. So hopefully before we end this, I'll be able to divert you to my website where you can download that worksheet and you can print it out. And even you can watch this recording and if you want, or just take notes to yourself and then transpose them over to that worksheet. It's not a super fancy worksheet, but it just helps you keep your thoughts organized. So hopefully that'll be available soon. But that is, I have worksheets for all of my TV shows. So pretty excited about that. Okay, the first step is, and actually I have notes here, so please don't feel offended if you see me glancing down every once in a while. I do want to make sure that I give you the best of information that I have and I don't skip anything. So I have notes for myself. So please don't feel offended. All right, the first step is to be very clear when you decide, okay, I want to change something. You've resolved to do something very exciting and different in your life. Before you embark on doing that again, on pursuing that change, I want you to actually take a step back and be very clear on the specific behavior that you don't want to do anymore. Okay, so that might sound silly, but I want you to be really clear on the specific things that you don't want to do anymore. What do you want to change? Okay, what unhelpful, unhealthy habit behaviors do you currently do that you don't want to do anymore? So for instance, a lot of people are, they want to start exercising. They want to have a consistent exercise program. And so if you go to a gym at this time of year, of course, they're jam-packed because so many people decide they want to do an exercise program, which is great. But one of the reasons that it doesn't stick with a lot of people and that by March, a lot of the gyms start to empty out a lot is because you're not really clear on what it is that you're trying to move away from. Okay, so it's great that you want to start a new exercise behavior, but in order for that to really take hold, what you want to be clear on is why weren't you doing it before? Okay, what was going on in your day, in the course of your week, that prevented you or that you didn't take that step to stick to that exercise program before? Be really clear on what you were doing before that you don't want to do anymore. Okay, be really clear about that. So for instance, you might say, well, I know that the best time for me to exercise every day is first thing in the morning. And I just wouldn't get myself out of bed. I just would decide that I wanted to sleep in or I would hit the snooze bar. I just wouldn't get up early enough to exercise, to fit it into my day realistically. And so you want to be really clear on what was going on to begin with that you weren't exercising regularly. If you were not working your business at the level that you wanted to work it, what was going on that you weren't doing that? Okay, be very clear. And this is a tough one. You're going to hear me talk about this a lot this year because it's kind of a crusade that I'm on. One of the things that I've realized is that a lot of the reasons that people don't change is because of shame, guilt, embarrassment, and disappointment in themselves. Okay, they are embarrassed by what they didn't do. And so they seek to avoid feeling embarrassed or avoid feeling ashamed. And so they just avoid things altogether. So you might feel ashamed to say, I didn't work my business that hard last year. I just wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. Or, I really didn't exercise last year and I'm ashamed about that because I know better. Or I wasn't eating properly last year. I let myself go. This is my thing actually. Last year, for some reason, I can't even tell you why, I just really overindulged. And I don't do that on a regular basis. I do it occasionally. But last year, for some reason, I just threw caution to the wind. I ate a lot of ice cream. I'm not really a big ice cream person, but I just did. So anyway, I could have felt really embarrassed, ashamed, or disappointed in myself about those things. And actually, I did feel those things until I realized that feeling embarrassed was actually getting in the way of me making those permanent changes. So you know what? I refuse to feel ashamed about what I did. Okay, I made a mistake. I did something that I don't want to do in the future, but I have to be very honest with the fact that I did those things. Because if I'm not upfront with myself, at least, about why I wasn't sticking to a good eating program, there's no way I'm going to be able to change that permanently in the future, ever. Because there's going to be this underlying sense of shame of, oh, I'll probably slip up and go back to doing what I used to do, and that's just a terrible thing. And so, you don't want to do that. So be very honest, remove shame. Let's have this be the year where we refuse to feel disappointed in ourselves, we refuse to feel embarrassed or ashamed of what we did or didn't do in the past, and have that be a barrier to what we're going to do in the future. All right, let's all agree that that's just not a great way to have permanent change in your life, to have that shame, that sense of shame, really anchor you or weigh you down. Okay, so the first step, though, is to get rid of the shame and then just be honest with yourself. What did you used to do about this in this particular area that you're trying to change that you don't want to do anymore? If you have piles of paperwork everywhere or piles of mail, like the mail stacks up, what did you used to do? Don't have any shame around it, but just be honest. Well, I would go get the mail and I'd come in, and rather than look at all the bills, I would just throw them on the kitchen counter because I just didn't want to deal with the money. I would feel embarrassed maybe about what you purchased or what the credit card bills maybe are like, and so you just wanted to avoid it. So then all of a sudden this big pile starts to materialize on your kitchen counter because you just don't want to deal with these things, okay? So don't have any embarrassment or disappointment in yourself about what you did in the past. Just be honest, okay? That's what you did. And once you're very clear about that with yourself, you know what you don't want to do anymore, okay? It's a really powerful thing to say, okay, this is exactly the way I used to handle this particular situation, and I just don't want to do that anymore. So you have to be clear about that. You have to know exactly what it was that you were doing that you want to override and not do anymore. So that's the first step. You have to be honest with yourself. The second step, after you know what it is that you used to do exactly that you don't want to do anymore, then the second step is that you want to know what it is that you want to change permanently. Be very clear and very specific about what it is that you want to change, what you're trying to change. You want to phrase your goal properly. So what does this mean? This means you don't want to say something just like, well, I want to lose 10 pounds. Because if anyone out there has ever tried to lose weight before, you're probably good at losing 10 pounds. I've lost 10 pounds numerous times, and then I gain it back. What you want to do, it's not that you want to lose the 10 pounds. You want to lose those 10 pounds and you want to keep them off. So what you really want, your true goal, let's say, is if you weigh 160 pounds and you want to lose 10 pounds, your true goal is that you want to maintain a weight of 150 pounds. That's your real goal. That's what you're really after, okay? Because what you used to do before is you used to maybe cycle up and down. You used to eat well for a little bit of time, and then you would backslide and kind of not eat so great, not exercise, and just kind of feel crappy about yourself. And then you get back on the wagon, and and there was a cycle up and down, up and down, up and down. Now you don't want to do that anymore. Instead, you want to maintain a healthy weight for you, which might be, let's say, 150 pounds, and that's your real goal. So after the first step, you understand what it was that you used to do that you don't want to do anymore, and you get really clear on specific behaviors that you did that you don't want to do anymore, that you want to replace. Now you have to decide what it is you're really after. What is your true goal? It's not just being organized, okay? It's, you want to have a kitchen counter that's clean and free of paper. You want to regularly go to the gym for 4 days every week, most weeks of the year, okay? Be very clear, and not just this week, and not just through the month of January, but forever, okay? Claim what you want. Claim what you want, and be very, very clear about it. It also means being very firm with yourself and being very positive about yourself. Hold on, let me, Dylan wants to call in. All right, hold on. Let me see if do you want to ask a question, Dylan? Let me see.
Hello.
Genre le créateur des Simpsons, Matt Groening, genre tu vois, il avait dit carrément, il avait dit que sa voix préférée était française, parce que la voix de Homer Simpson, tu vois. Ouais.
By the way, so we're doing a question either, or you can raise your hand and
yeah.
Hi, Dylan.
I saw that your.
Hi. Do you have a question for me?
How to get some good habits. That's right. So, I heard that waking up soon is good for the day, you know? Yeah, early, sorry.
Waking up soon or early?
You think it is, but...
Early, yeah. I think it is. I do.
No.
Yeah.
I like sleeping.
You don't like to?
19. Yeah.
How old are you, Dylan? Yeah, that's why. Okay. yeah, you're a teenager. I think that might change in a couple years, and if you can get in the habit of getting up early,
okay.
That's best. It really is best. But you also need a lot of sleep too. So, take sleeping, naps, do what you need to do. But if you get up early, it is best.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, sleeping is good, and you need to get enough sleep. But if you can get up early, you can get a good start on the day. All right, thank you. Bye. Okay. Oh, I hope I didn't offend you, Dylan. Gosh, I hope I didn't kick you off. I just wanted to get you off the screen, so I apologize for that. But thank you so much, Dylan, for joining the conversation. And anybody can, if you have a question, please feel free to request to get on the open seat, and I'll put you on air. Or if you just have a question that you want to message me, certainly feel free to do that, and I'll answer your question live. In fact, that's one of the main things I want to make sure that I do with my plabs here, is to make sure that I am answering the questions that you guys have. So thanks, Dylan. I appreciate that. Anyway, so with the second step, you want to make sure that you're being very clear, and I want you to declare what it is that you want. So actually, if you're still listening, what you'd want to do, Dylan, is you want to say, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock every morning. You're just going to do it. So with a statement like that, that's a very declarative thing. What you're not going to say, Dylan, is, well, I'm going to try to get up at 6 o'clock every morning from now on. Because the word try implies that you're not actually going to do it. And remember, people do what they want to do. So if you're telling yourself you're only going to try to do something, you're not invested in it. You don't really want it, because you're only going to try. You want to do things that you're going to make sure that you make them happen. So declare what you want, okay? I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to maintain a healthy weight between 100 and 155 pounds for the rest of my life. Declare it, all right? And make it a positive statement. So you want to make sure that you don't say things like, well, I'm going to avoid gaining more than 10 pounds, okay? Because that's kind of a negative thing. You want to make it positive. I'm going to maintain a healthy weight of this, between this weight and that weight for the rest of my life. Now, that might seem scary for some people to declare something so audacious to do for the rest of their lives, but you know what? I want you to do it anyway. Don't feel scared about it. Don't feel embarrassed. One of the reasons that people feel nervous or hesitant or tentative to declare a bold goal is because they're scared that they might not achieve it. And what are they really scared of? People talk about fear all the time, that fear is a big problem. What are people scared of? You're scared of feeling ashamed. You're scared of feeling disappointed. You're scared of disappointing yourself or others. And you're scared of feeling embarrassed. That's what people are really afraid of when they say, oh, I'm afraid of setting a goal like that. Remember, we're going to banish all those things this year. Declare it. If something happens and you end up not reaching that particular goal, that's not a reason to be embarrassed because you didn't reach a goal. It's not a reason to be embarrassed. It's a reason to say, okay, something happened that I didn't reach my goal. So guess what you're going to do? You are going to figure out exactly what the problem was, what got in the way, what prevented you from reaching that goal. And then you're going to fix the problem, and then you're going to move on and you're going to do it again. So don't be afraid of declaring something that seems audacious, that seems powerful, and seems very exciting. I want you to do it because it'll make a huge difference for you, okay? So make sure that you do that. All right, make it positive and make sure that you declare it. All right, third thing, the third step is for you to have a specific and realistic plan. Okay, so let's review. The first thing that you want to do is make sure you're really clear on what you don't want to do anymore. What are the specific behaviors that you want to make sure you're not doing anymore? The second thing that you want to do is be really clear on what you do want to do. What is your goal? You want your goal to be positively stated and definitively, declaratively stated, okay? So don't be afraid anymore, okay? Don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed, don't be disappointed, or don't be scared of being those things anymore. There's no time for that. Time is wasting, so don't be that way anymore. Declare what you want, be positive, and be firm about it, right? So then the third thing that you want to do is you want to develop a plan or a strategy for how you're going to make that happen. Now, you have to be specific and you have to also be realistic here. Now, I could do actually a whole 6-week series on how to develop plans and strategies for things, but you want to be very clear on the specific steps that you are going to do instead of the things that you used to do that you don't want to do anymore. So for instance, if organization is a problem for you and you end up with piles of stuff everywhere and you know it's just because you start piling things on your desk or on your kitchen counter because you don't want to, you're trying to avoid something, for instance. So instead of avoiding things, instead what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, my new plan is when I come in with the mail, I'm going to spend 5 minutes when I come in with the mail and I'm going to make an action plan for each item in that mail. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to make a decision about what to do about that piece of mail right then and there, okay? Or if you are trying to lose weight, not trying to lose weight, you're going to lose weight. If you're working on losing weight and it's moving down, you're starting to hit a plateau. So what you want to do is you want to develop a plan. You want to have a strategy for what you're going to do tomorrow with your eating about that, okay? So how are you going to address that issue? So what you might want to do is say, okay, well, I'm going to eat only whole, real foods and nothing processed. And that's a great goal, but if you don't have a strategy for how to make that happen, the moment you're starting to feel hungry, you're going to reach for the Oreos if they're there. So instead what you do is you say, you have a rule for yourself. When I'm feeling hungry, I'm going to reach for, an orange or have a cup of tea, if that is helpful to you. Have a very specific action that you're going to do at your most critical points where you know you're at risk for backsliding, okay? Be very, very clear about what you're going to do. What is that plan? What is that strategy? If you're working your business, if this is the year that you know you're ready and that your business is going to move forward and you just know, be very, very specific on what that strategy is going to be. And it doesn't need to be that, we have every single day mapped out 100%, but know exactly what your strategy is, that you're going to, call 10 people every single day, new people. You're going to join 3 new networking groups in the first quarter and then figure out which one is the best one for you. And then you're going to follow up with every single new person that you meet with a phone call and an email. Develop a very, very specific strategy of exactly what you're going to do. Because there's going to be times when you're not going to feel like pursuing your goal. That's just the truth. No one can be motivated 100% of the time. In fact, motivation only comes around like 10% of the time. So 90% of the time, you have to figure out what you're going to do anyway, even though you're not feeling motivated about it. So if you have a rule that you're going to commit to, for instance, every day I'm going to call 10 people that I met at last week's networking group, and that's just what I'm going to do. And that's your rule. So when you don't feel like it, but if you just know that's what I do every day, that's my strategy, that's my plan, that's what I'm going to commit to, you're much more likely to stick with it. What oftentimes happens is people say, well, I'm going to try to call 10 people, and then you don't know who you're going to call. But if in your strategy and your plan, you know it's the 10 people that you just met last week at your networking group, then that takes away one more degree of freedom that would actually pull you away from pursuing those follow-up calls. So you know what you're going to do, right? Make sure you have a very specific plan and strategy. And this is important too. You don't want to develop your plan based on your current behavior. So what a lot of people do is they identify their goal based on what they're currently doing. So they'll say to themselves, I just don't want to eat sugar anymore. I want to eliminate sugar from my diet. And although that's a worthy, thing to pursue, the problem is that you're not giving yourself an alternative of what you're going to do instead of eating sugar or instead of eating processed foods or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So you want to reword that into something that's strategic, that has a plan behind it. So you might say, every day I'm only going to eat foods that are, fruit and vegetable based, and I'm going to have lean animal proteins 3 times a day. And those lean animal proteins, make sure you make a list for yourself of the things that you can eat. Have a list, have your plan. What are the sorts of foods that you do feel good about eating for snack time, let's say at 3 in the afternoon, when most people want to run for something sweet? I know I usually do want to run for some candy at that time of day. It's a tough time of day for a lot of people. So make sure that you know exactly what you're going to do instead of the candy. If you wait until 3 o'clock to figure out what am I going to eat now, I can't eat candy, guess what you're going to do? You're going to eat candy because you haven't given yourself a viable alternative of what else to do. Same thing with your business. If you wait until you sit down to do your business hours to decide at that point in time, what am I going to do with my business hours today? You're not going to do anything. But if instead the day before you said, okay, tomorrow when I sit down for my business, I'm going to call these 10 people and identify who they are. And then I'm going to write these emails and I'm going to post these social media posts on these different social media sites. And if you're really specific, then the next day when you sit down, you don't have to waste a lot of time deciding what to do. I had made a video, I guess about 1.5 years ago, that's worthwhile for me to put up again on my Facebook page. It's called The Tyranny of Indecision. Because let me tell you, one of the biggest derailers of progress is just simply indecision or trying to decide what to do. Once you make a decision, okay, this is what I'm going to eat, you don't have to, there's no anxiety around it, that you're just going to eat that, and I instead of eating the candy, I'm going to have this apple and a cup of tea instead. And you just know what that is. You may not enjoy it as much as the candy. Well, that's a completely different story. And you may not like the fact that you're making these follow-up phone calls, and that's irrelevant because you want to get to your goal. You want to achieve these important changes in your life. So you're going to do these things, whether you feel like it or not, whether you like it or not, right? So it's just a matter of making yourself do these things, and you're much more likely to make yourself do them when you have a plan. All right. The fourth thing, and this is something that most people don't do, but it's probably the thing that's going to help you the most, and that is to anticipate where your vulnerable points are along this progress and figure out a strategy for how you're going to handle them. Where are your trigger points? What are your trigger times? Like for eating, for me, mid-afternoon is a trigger time for me. That's when I just find myself kind of wandering around my kitchen thinking, oh, what should I have for a snack? I'm kind of hungry, but not really. I feel like eating, but I'm not really hungry. And so then you just kind of end up grazing and certainly reaching for foods that are not the best thing for you. Now, so what I would have to do in that situation is say, okay, I know that's a trigger time for me. So when that time happens, I'm going to have my cup of tea and I'm going to have an apple instead. And that way, when that time happens, I have a rule for myself of what I'm going to do. Now, in the back of my mind, I might think to myself, gosh, I really would prefer to run out and get a thing of jelly beans, but I'm not going to do that because I already have this other plan. If I didn't have the plan for the apple and the tea, I would probably run out and eat jelly beans. Even though I know part of me doesn't, I know it's not the right thing to do, I would do it anyway because that's the only option I gave myself. I don't want to eat jelly beans. I don't want to eat jelly beans. What does your brain hear? Eat jelly beans, eat jelly beans. So I have to go get jelly beans. Instead, I say to myself, well, I may want to eat jelly beans, but what I'm actually going to eat is this apple and have the tea. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. The good news is that you are an expert on yourself, okay? You know exactly where your vulnerable times are, what they are, and what you tend to do during those vulnerable trigger times. You know that already about yourself. This is not rocket science, okay? You are an expert in what you've done for your whole life. So you can sit down and figure that out and say, okay, I know that in the times in the past when I've worked my business and I wanted to accelerate my business, what I do instead of calling clients or calling new customers is I get on Facebook or I get on Twitter, or I check my emails 800 times. You know exactly what you do that gets in the way. So for Pete's sake, be honest with yourself. Again, don't be embarrassed about it. Don't be ashamed about it. Don't be disappointed in yourself about it. Just acknowledge, hey, yeah, this is what I used to do in the past. And I don't want to do that anymore. So know, though, also that you do have times where you're more vulnerable to backsliding, and those trigger times are really relevant. Those are crucial times for you. So anticipate when those tough times are going to be. There are times where I've done detoxes and I've kind of tried to control my eating better than other times, shall we say. And so what I do is, if I know that I'm on a pretty regimented eating schedule, if I have to go to a party or something or a wedding, I just know in my mind I'm going to be surrounded by food, the delicious looking food, and I just know I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to eat it. And I will say to myself, maybe, if I see carrots or something there, I'll let myself eat carrot sticks, but I'm just not going to eat it. And that preparation, that mental preparation before I go into those moments makes all the difference in the world. If I just showed up without kind of preparing myself mentally, of knowing, even visualizing there's going to be a lot of food there that I'm going to enjoy doing, maybe even cake or sweets, and even sometimes, just something that's delicious, then guess what? I'm going to eat those things probably, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so make sure that you know exactly. Well, you do know exactly what your trigger times are, so don't do that. All right, just be very honest with what they are. All right. And make sure that you know how you're going to handle them. That's part of your plan and part of your strategy. Okay, we have someone who is, I think, wanting to ask a question. So we'll see. Ahmed?
How are you? What?
Ahmed?
English, no. Arabic.
Hi, what's up? Do you have a question?
Turkish.
Arabic?
Sorry.
No,
Bye.
Arabic. Sorry. All right, bye. Yep, I don't speak Arabic. Sorry about that. But if anybody else has a question, feel free. You can type it in the message area. Oh, and by the way, my Maria, my wonderful assistant, let us know that you can get the handout for today's blab on the link on my website. Actually, the link is there in the message column there. So if you go there, you can get the handout. You can print it out, and of course, I've already now gone through these 4 steps. I will review them a little bit, or you can always watch this recording. I'll be sending it out on email. So certainly, feel free to do that, or you can just transpose the notes that you did take onto that worksheet, whatever you feel like doing. Okay, so just to review, and in case you have any questions, I want to open this up for discussion, because these are each of these steps. Like I said, none of this is particularly rocket science. These aren't hard, but most people don't take the time to answer these questions about themselves and to get very clear on what the strategies are, what your plan's going to be, what you don't want to do anymore, what you do want to do, how to phrase these new goals. You just don't take the time to do those things. And if you do, it's going to dramatically improve your ability to reach your goals. So remember, step 1, be really clear on what you don't want to do anymore, okay? Just analyze how you used to handle particular situations and be really super clear on what you don't want to do anymore. Then you want to phrase your goal properly, make sure it's positive, and make sure it's strong and declarative. Go after what you want. People do what they want to do, so make sure, do what you want to do, okay? Go get it. Don't let shame, guilt, fear, embarrassment, any of that crap get in the way, all right? There's no time for that. Go get what you want to do and claim it, declare it, okay? The third thing that you want to do is you want to have a specific and a realistic plan, okay, on every step. What is it exactly that you want to do, all right? Don't be vague. Don't try. Do it, okay? And then your 4th step is to analyze yourself. You're not stupid. You know exactly what you do. So be honest with yourself about when your trigger times are. When are the times when you're very vulnerable to not following through on something that's important to you? You know when those times are. So take the moments it takes to really analyze that and figure that out, and then develop a strategy for how you're going to handle that in the future. Okay? All right, so those are 4 very important steps that you can take in order to establish really good habits that last for a lifetime. Now, are you ever going to backslide? Of course you are. But when you backslide, because you will, and that's not being negative, that's just being realistic, you're going to have moments, you're going to have days where you're not as moving forward as robustly as you'd like to, and that's okay, because when that happens, guess what? You're not going to feel ashamed about it, you're not going to be disappointed in yourself about it, you're not going to be embarrassed by it. No. You're just going to say, okay, today's a day where I didn't follow through with what I wanted to do towards my biggest and most important goals. You might be reasonable for you to figure out why that was. Did something unexpected happen? Did you, where you find yourself, in a situation that you just didn't anticipate, so you didn't know how else to handle it, and so whatever it is, analyze what happened that particular day or series of weeks, if that's the case, and then fix the problems. Okay, you're not stupid. You're an expert on yourself. You know why things didn't happen. All right, this is not a mystery. Okay, so but don't be embarrassed about the fact that maybe you didn't do what you wanted to do before. Just acknowledge it. Okay, I didn't do it. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it now. Okay, those are your 4 steps. Okay, who else has questions or comments or statements, or are there goals that you want me to help you evaluate the best way to state them, or do you have conversation about to help you develop clarity on what you used to do that you don't want to do anymore? The planning part of the new habit's hard for me. Yeah. Well, can you talk, Teresa, about why it's hard? What part of the planning is hard? I don't know if you were on a video. I know last time you were on video, it was choppy, but we could try if you want. How often should you go back and reassess your goals? Well, as part of the planning and the strategizing, I think it's important to have benchmarks, okay, to have targets that help you figure out, are you on the way? Are you getting closer to what your goals are? So I'm really, and you know, and I do like to call them benchmarks and targets as opposed to an actual goal, because sometimes the word goal gets really scary for people. But make sure that you have some way to assess your progress along the way so that you know, okay, if let's say a month from now, if you're running a business and the business, you would theoretically, the business should be at a particular place 1 month from now. Figure out what that place looks like. What will your revenue be? How many more new clients would you have? Whatever metric makes sense for you. And then when you're at that 30-day mark, let's say, then you'll be able to figure out, okay, is what I'm doing getting me closer to my objectives or not? So in terms of how often, you know, I guess it depends on what you're working towards, but probably monthly, I would imagine, is reasonable for most people, because for most goals that most people have, a month is a decent amount of time to figure out. You're not sure what to do, for example, like 10, but not know all 10 contacts when I'm playing. You want to make 10 contacts a day. You mean meet 10 new people or contact 10 people? So during the planning, contact 10 people. Okay, so during your planning time, what I would do is the day before or a couple of days before, or while you're making your plan, figure out at that time, who are those 10 people going to be? So for instance, it might make sense to, for your business to say, okay, well, you know, Mondays, I'm going to contact my current clients, my current customer list, 10 people from that. And Tuesdays, I'll contact follow-up calls, maybe from new people that you met. And then Wednesdays might be, hot prospects, for people who might join your team, something like that. That would be one way to do it, but define it ahead of time who those 10 people are going to be, because you're right. I mean, if anybody, that's one of the flaws in just having a goal, let's say, of to call 10 people a day for a business. And a lot of business owners have that sort of a goal. I'm going to call 10 people a day. Some people can do that. A lot of people can't, because they don't know who those 10 people are going to be. So that's how I would decide that in advance. Who are those 10 people? So what you could do is, if you want to say like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, you contact your current customer list, let's say. What you would do is Sunday, figure out find the names of the people that on Monday you're going to call. So that way on Monday, you don't have to debate about who you're going to call on your contact list. You already have decided that the day before. It's the decision part that's exhausting. It's not the actual calling people. It's deciding who to call. That's who's exhausting. Okay, I have a question here from Bila. And sorry about that. That's my other phone call. Okay. Yeah. So remember too, always, that it's the decision making that's exhausting. That's what keeps, because it's who am I going to call? What am I going to do? This is my business time. What am I going to do? Okay, Bila is not coming through. So I think we have to, okay. So that's because you're right. I mean, if you just wait till, I just want to call 10 people, that's way too vague, way too vague. All right, who else has a question? Mari, did I answer yours? Go back and reassess, review your goals. Because another thing about that too is, if after a month you haven't made the progress that you think you should have, some of it could be that the goal you might need to readjust what your objective is. You know, it could be that it's just not, you know, actually what you really want. That's the other thing, because remember, we all do what we want to do, not what is in our best interest. And so it could be a matter too of figuring out, is that the right thing that you're pursuing? Okay. Who else? We have a couple more minutes left. And while you're waiting for your questions, let me tell you too, next on Wednesday, so I'm going to have another show Wednesday. It's going to be every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 11 a.m. Pacific. Please feel free to join live. I'll be sending out the links to these recordings through email and also my Facebook page. If you're not on my email list, head on over to thefreedomprescription.com, thefreedomprescription.com, and on there you can give me your email address and I'll give you a free 43-page stress management productivity booster ebook that you can go through, which is very helpful, I think, for a lot of people. But anyway, so Wednesday, okay, so today we talked about, you know, what are the steps to reach your goals. I also talked a little bit about shame, guilt, embarrassment, disappointment, and how we're going to get rid of those things. And so in one more step towards helping you do that, on Wednesday, we're going to talk about what are the 4 steps to go through when you fail, okay? When something doesn't work out, when you get derailed or just kind of, you know, things just don't work out the way you want them to, and you feel like you failed, what are the 4 things that you can do to get back up and get moving forward again? So, and I will be discussing how important it is to not feel embarrassed, disappointed, shame, guilt, all that sort of stuff as part of that. So, okay, make sure you come back again on Wednesday at 2. So any more questions, comments, suggestions? Nope. Okay. All right, very good. Well, I am going to stop the recording here.